Yeah, hi everyone. It's Billy again from 47 Walls All I Am. I hope you're all well. Thank you very much again for joining me today. Today we're going to be chatting again with the wonderful Martin Annette from Arcanum Vita. Today's podcast predominantly about the Scorpio new moon. We're going to be talking all things astrology and what's coming up for all of us in November. There's some exciting times ahead. A lot of incredible energies out there, and we're going to be talking about release and transformation and empowerment, and there's a lot that we got through. So unfortunately we had some technical challenges and a hiccup, and the visual didn't come through, and so it'll be an audio only for this one. But Martin and I did discuss about recording it again, but we were so happy with everything, the energy, the exchange, the nuggets that are in here. To us, we got a lot out of it, and we're sure that you're going to. And we didn't feel like by re-recording it that we were going to do this one justice. So very excited to release this video, and I hope you get as much out of it as we do. So thank you very much again for joining us. If you haven't already, please I encourage you and invite you to like and subscribe. It does help the channel grow and help me get the message and the love out there to as many people as possible. So thank you so much again for your support and love, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Billy again from 47 Walls All I Am. Hope you're all well. Blessings to you all. Welcome back the magnificent Martin Annette from Arcanum Vita. Welcome back, Martin. I love our chat, so I again look forward to our chat today, and it's all about the new moon in Scorpio. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. Thanks for having us. It's good to be back. I love talking to you. It's a pleasure. The new moon coming up in Scorpio on the 1st of November. So I suppose, as an overview, if you have a look at it, we're coming up to in the southern hemisphere. I suppose if you look at the northern hemisphere, we're at that time of year now where, in the northern hemisphere it would be Halloween, but for us in the southern hemisphere, it's Beltane, or it's the spring festival. We're in the heights of spring and heights of energy. Even though the sign of Scorpio is kind of tends to be associated with more the Halloweeny side of things, the darkness, the underworld, all that type of stuff. But for us in the south, if you look at the seasons, we're definitely heading into Beltane, and the wonderful release of natural energy and light and day length, and everything's sort of picking up and kicking in. So it's sort of it's a wonderful sort of, I suppose, from a lunar perspective, it's a beautiful cycle to bring in the fertility and the abundance and the regenerative capacity that life contains, which is one of the positive, more lighter sides of Scorpio, is regeneration and I guess fertility and that life force, the will, and that type of thing. So we're coming into Scorpio season, and it's very exciting, very exciting.
Excellent. That's great. Lots to look forward to, and it sounds very positive. So I wanted to share with you. I went to a Native American Cherokee sweat lodge yesterday, and
Nice.
spent the day down the Gold Coast with Bobby Running Fox and his son Mivon, and their crew there. Magnificent day. I sort of bring that up because it was a really cleansing day. We did the water ceremony. They had the medicine wheel where we all chanted around. We had the drumming powwow. We went into
Wow.
the TP and did the peace pipe. I'd never done that before with the
Nice.
tobacco, so that was
Lovely.
but it was all about raising your energies. And then we went into the sweat lodge, which was quite the experience of they bring in the hot rocks that were under the fire, and similar to a sauna, I guess, physically. And you're all in the canvas, quite confined space, so it gets hot. At first you're very comfortable and it's all good, but it builds momentum. And as we're building
Wow.
momentum, it was you sort of, they do the round, so we do like a shared circle, and you can barely see each other, but you got the talking stick. And it was a great release because we talked about, we all had to release only one part, but a part of anger that we so we talk about it out loud, not in detail, but just briefly, and release that. And as we're doing that, the momentum is changing, and the release, and there's yelling and crying and tears and real release there. It was magnificent.
That's amazing.
And then
how cool.
and then the next cycle was sadness. So we did the same thing, and then we finished with gratitude, which was a beautiful way to finish. So then we water purification. So it was just magnificent.
Wow.
And,
really?
Yeah, so
That's awesome, Billy.
I'm feeling lighter. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd feel amazing for that. How cool is that? Awesome. I mean, that just totally encapsulates and summarizes the entire energy of Scorpio. Like, I mean, in a sense, like, just release. And I mean, the water element, particularly, like Scorpio has a water sign, but it's all about sort of, in a way, transformation and release and bringing things to light. I mean, and power, keywords like power and life. But I mean, everything, I could just feel that in my core there, Billy, as you're saying that, like that really is that Scorpionic feel that, and particularly, this new moon that we're heading into, like it is that idea of bringing out from the depths for the purposes of release and ultimately regeneration, that deeper inner wellspring energy of life, that ultimately, once it's released and once it's immobilized and released from old trapped forms, so to speak, like stuck emotions or old patterns and that type of thing, it's refreshed for the purposes of recreation. So, like, wow, dude, that would have felt pretty amazing. Amazing, I'm sure. And you're looking clearer for it, Billy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, the clarity that you gain from it. One of the part of the water ceremony, Mivon talked about the when we had to choose, and I guess it's in all of us, but he talked about, and it's related to the moon in many ways, because it was the wolf. Funnily enough, and
yes.
you had to choose the black wolf, which was anger and frustration and power and pure force, or the white wolf, which was passive, calm, relaxed, loving, compassionate, kind. And I guess we've got both of the black wolf and the white wolf in us.
Yes,
but on
absolutely.
the day we had to choose which one, where we're at more, which one resonates with us more, and then we had to take that energy into the sweat lodge. So related to the moon.
Yes,
all know about the howling wolf, but it was funny or interesting that and everyone would have made their choices. You didn't verbalize it, so you sort of kept it to yourself, but you could feel the mix of energy in the sweat lodge as well. Obviously some would have picked black and some would have picked white, and
absolutely.
I mean, you couldn't go grey, you couldn't go silver, you had to pick one or the other.
One or the other.
You couldn't sit on the fence.
Well, in many ways, that's the dichotomy too of, say, Scorpio. If you consider it as an energy, there's the destructive sort of associated with malevolence, but really, necessary as part of the cycle of life, the endings and the destruction and the breakdown and the release and those types of things. But then again, there's the positive side of Scorpio, which is the regenerative and the breaking through of illusion in order to bring in something more holy, something more sacred, something, that sort of transcends the current state that we're in, like it's sort of that aspiration towards drawing upon our collective resource and drawing upon our collective will, so to speak. So like that really captures that I guess that vibe, really. Like that's awesome, Billy. I mean, gosh, I won't ask you chose, but I mean, I can really feel that, because neither is good nor bad. Like it's just it's a state of energy, isn't it?
That's right, and that was emphasised on the yesterday. The importance of not judging either one. At the end of the day, we're in both. We've got both in us at any given time, and
that's right.
It was interesting to make that conscious choice, and conscious, but also from a spiritual level. We had to, hand on heart, go in and almost have a quick meditation of where am I at right now, and
was there implications to, like, say, if you chose the darker wolf, like, was there implications, insofar as was there a responsibility for the betterment of all associated with that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess for me, the way my takeaway was to, if you're, let's say you chose the dark wolf, then you don't need there was no, it's not rigid, it's not fixed, so you don't need to stay in that. So tap into that energy, and then but also be flexible enough to sort of sway over to the other side. And I know what I said before, as far as you had to choose one, but you didn't discount the other either, because there is that duality and that balance in all of us, that, well, hopefully. And I guess the emphasis, the other takeaway was to not, you don't have to stay in one or the other. For yesterday, there's that real power, and like you're saying now, like with the new moon with the Scorpio, the positives and I won't say positives and negatives, but the different aspects of the Scorpio new moon. There was really that combination, or that swirled energy within us, and even getting around the medicine wheel, because we did that after. We're all shuffling around and chanting, and you could feel that vortex growing, because everyone was in their wolf, and we're chanting. Some people were quite quiet and timid, and other people were like chanting to, really loud and passionate, and you could just you could almost pick who had chosen what based on what we've just been through, and there was no right or wrong.
And more or less that choice was playing out in many ways too, like the requirement, like the dynamic would have been playing out. So with the outward acts of will, there'd be a reserved sort of magnetic observance and sort of, I guess, stabilizing position of withdrawal associated with it as well. So
absolutely,
that's fascinating. Wow, Billy. Like, I mean, good. I mean, that's sort of, in a way, like, if we look at the moon coming into a Scorpio moon, it is a time of regeneration. Like, it really does. If you think of such an amazing ceremony, like, I mean, that really does capture the energetic that we're moving into seasonally. Like, this is every year we move into a Scorpio season. So it's that time of sort of breaking from, or breaking away from, old patterns for the purposes of renewal, and at the same time then investing our energy or investing our intention into that sort of willful process of creation. So, like, this is very much the time that we're in. And I mean, it's interesting though, Billy. Like, I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like, just, you mentioned the release of emotions like anger and sadness, and that sort of shouting off things, or really getting that out. Yeah, if we look at Scorpio, as a sign, it's got two rulers. One is Mars, and the other one is Pluto. And so, interestingly, in this Scorpio moon, it's a very sort of rare kind of coincidence, if you like. But the Mars is, which is in Cancer at the moment, the sign of Cancer, and Pluto's in Capricorn. They're both the rulers of Scorpio are in this really tight opposition to one another. So there's this sort of internalized, I guess, just this incredibly internalized process going on within us all, that I feel like, described based on what you described, it is a process of sort of helping the emotional side of our life somehow find rational expression or rational balance with the structural side of our life. So, like, it is this enormous internal tension for the purposes of regeneration. So it's going to blow all our cobwebs out. It's going to really bring things to a head. Like, it's going to really ask that anything that's old, stale, or old forms necessarily are going to be called into renewal. So it's very, very interesting time. And I mean, the way that I sort of summarized it, it's a kind of this call for a sort of a social consciousness. Like where we as individuals, if you look at, say, Scorpio and Taurus are on a polarity to one another. So Taurus being, I guess, the material world, and Scorpio being the energetic of say, the spiritual world, so to speak. And there's this constant interplay between the breaking and forming of material form to either hold it within energy or release it back into light, type of thing. There's this constant ongoing dynamic happening on the material level, if you like. But in that process, though, things can become stuck or maligned or malevolent, and in many ways stifle us in our development or stifle us in our sort of movement towards the new. But it's the inevitability, like the seasons of life. The cycle always turns. So whatever's repressed will be released. Like, I mean, in the scheme of things and in the cycle of things. So, like, as Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, also goes into Aquarius on November the 20th, so sort of within this new lunation that we're going into, there's this enormous amount of precipitative energy to somehow release the repressed and release what is trapped and release, that which is stored in old forms for the sake of renewal. And if Aquarius is the destination, with Pluto being the ruler, that is a social based consciousness. It's this idea of sort of looking at a grander picture of humanitarianism and a grander picture of the collective, so to speak, and sort of try and bring in a more humanitarian orientation to the future. So it's a bit of a pressure cooker, but like the ceremony that you described really, I feel, sort of describes in form, like in actual ceremonial practice, the energy at work. Really, it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I love what you just said there, Martin. I'm just picturing myself back in that, and I won't just, it's not important what I chose, but you could feel the
Yeah.
energy, and I guess if you chose, let's say you've chosen the black wolf, and so there was an opportunity in the sweat lodge to release, like you just said, and that actually
Mm.
turns into release the anger and the sadness, and that we finished with
Yeah.
gratitude. So it was a lot softer at the end, and you could feel the
Mm.
energy changing sort of throughout that journey. That everyone
Absolutely.
individually but collectively had, and we were in a group of, I don't know, 16, 17 people, but you're talking about globally, it's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
So
and that's the thing. If you look at it too, don't worry, Billy. I'm busting to ask you what you chose, but I won't. I'll stop.
oh,
But,
oh, I'm
but
happy to choose. Yeah, because
yeah,
it
well,
probably, yeah,
but either way, it's just that. Would you agree? It's not where what we choose. It's that really what it is the point from which we start. So either way, we'll end up at the destination. Ultimately, but it's through which starting route do we depart?
yeah,
Like which way do we get there? And
that's
like you
right.
say, gratitude being the destination. Whether you go the good path or the dark path or whatever the path, the ultimate destination is ultimately to, I would imagine, bring about a greater fusion of the divine into the material. Like it's that Scorpio Taurus polarity playing out where however we get there, we're ultimately trying to make the dense more subtle,
That's right.
and make
Yeah.
the subtle more dense. So it's a sort of an alchemical process anyway, isn't it?
That's perfect description of and I'll reveal it. I chose the white wolf. So
Yeah, right.
I've done a fair
Nice.
bit of work. Some of the viewers might know about my journey with the cancer and everything else. So I've done a lot of emotional release and everything else. So I'm sitting there going, yeah, I'm pretty good. I've got, I'm going to go to the white wolf. I'm feeling calm and relaxed, and
Yep.
that was what more resonated with me. But by the time we got to the sweat lodge, and then as the heat built and the energy swelled around, there was a little bit of anger on a and there
Yeah.
was so much release. But that, like you said, that transmutation into
Mm.
so I end up incorporating some of that darkness and that anger. But it's so important to the process to then get back to the white wolf. But I had to travel
Yes.
over to the get that anger and that sadness out to then be able to go. And then what I guess for me, the way I looked at it, it was the white wolf. It gave you an opportunity, maybe not in my case, but if you're a little bit soft and a little bit timid, you maybe haven't created some boundaries in your life, and you've just been, like a leaf in the air, just going where life takes you, and not actually taking ownership and responsibility.
Yeah.
That's still, you can still do that in a loving, soft way, but
Oh, yeah.
with the boundaries, you actually by having that little bit of black wolf in you that gives you the strength and the power and
Yeah.
that self empowerment, and that doesn't that doesn't exude anger and violence or anything. I'm not talking that, but just that strength, that inner strength, and that inner will, which we've all got in us. And all I am, that's what we talked about yesterday, was just paramount. And I'm guessing, because I obviously chose the white wolf, but the black wolf people, they, in the process of the sweat lodge, and you could tell people were angry, people were yelling and crying, and without going into personal details, but there was a lot of that energy going on, and you could see at the end we had the water purification later afterwards, but there was a softness, but everyone was in their I am. So we sort of met in the middle as a group, I guess. People would maybe even come from extremes, and wherever we were on the spectrum.
That's it. And I mean, it's almost as though, like, and this is a Scorpionic thing too. Like, but it's that the common feature to that duality. Like, if you got the white and the dark, like again, it synthesizes in the will, or in the creative energy. It's magnetic. It's sort of it's just it is a force. It's the base chakra. It's the Kundalini. It's this power, energy of power. And what I mean by that, not as powerful, because that's where the dualities tend to come in, is the right or wrong alignment to what we would call power. But power is ultimately the regenerative drive of creation. And like, I mean, in its purity, in its absolute purity, in its unexpressed or unpolarized form, it is just the will to embody form, or to create, or to generate. And so, like, I think if you look at any of the repressions, or the dysfunctions, so to speak, or the pent up energy in life, that either manifests as lack of control, or anger, or dissatisfaction, or despair, or sadness, or whatever, if we track it back to its fundamental source, it's a detachment on some level, or a blockage, or a restriction, or even just a developing relationship to what we would refer to as power. And so, like, and all of us individually, kind of have our own orientation to power, and that being the very thing that we are here to do, is co-create a life, and use our talents, and use our abilities, and use our kind of innate gifts and skills to somehow apply imagination to thought form, to create something, and that creation process might be one of destruction leading to creation, or discovery leading to creation, or some method through which we bring about the application of our will to generate something. And so essentially, that is the key, is to bring ourselves, or allow ourselves to be closer to our own innate source of power. And that power, I think the fascinating thing about Scorpio is that power very easily interchanges with collective power too, because on some level we all are, on that unconscious level, we're all very interconnected on that primal instinctive level of power, and I suppose that's the fine line, isn't it? Separating ourselves from our own individuality of power, and again finding ourselves and being, with respect, amidst the collective power. And I mean, that's, ultimately that's the dilemma, the Scorpionic dilemma. But yeah, it's fascinating. I love it. I love it. Yeah. But Billy, wow, stuff like that, what you're doing, that really mobilizes that, and it really brings you into touch with it. And I mean, that's just fabulous. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Dude, my hairs are standing on end.
It was an amazing journey, and I'm very thankful to Bobby and Mivon and the team. Just they bring such love, and their culture, and their a lot of the Native Americans, and in other cultures all around the world, they have that reverence to nature. They have that reverence to the spirit. The grandfather sun, and grandmother moon, and
Yeah.
Pachamama or Mother Earth, they have that
Yeah.
reverence and that connection to all the elements, the wind, fire, earth, and water,
Yeah.
and yeah, they celebrate that, and they know that they're part of that, and that's part of them, and they really
That is.
celebrate the I am, which is that power that you talk about, that empowerment that we all have innately down
Yes.
inside, and sometimes we
Yes.
don't recognize that within ourselves, but we have it. And
That's
when
it.
sometimes when we don't have that, we try to enforce ourselves on others and our beliefs, and that
Yeah.
through insecurities, through a lack of self love, we use the force rather than that beautiful power that we all have. Yeah,
That's it. Absolutely. And that's the thing, like the moment we stray from that sort of respect and recognition of our own innate creative power, that's when we are tempted into control or manipulation or those types of negative expressions, which are all too observable in the world, especially today, like I mean it's there. But like, yeah, self-empowerment is key. And like you said, like self-empowerment is recognizing too we are part of the great system of nature, which is ultimately the source of our power. Like I mean, one of the sources of our power. So it is it's that beautiful recognition that we're part of a very beautiful, powerful, creative process. Like and in that too, just trusting and having faith that we're capable and competent of doing the best we can in that. And I suppose that just to sort of go that a little bit further, that's where love's so important, isn't it, Billy? Like it's that recognition of self-love and just being in the energy of love that kind of enables us to, in a way, synthesize the energy around us so that it can be used as a constructive instrument of creation rather than, if we're sort of disconnected with it, that's when energies like power or will or create the regenerative energy sort of starts to become, I guess, an instrument of fear or worry or control or otherwise. And so from a place of love, I think we've got a better opportunity to be connected to our creative source,
for
in
sure.
that way.
Yeah,
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 and that you having your background with homeopathy, and yeah, you know, with homeostasis and the equilibrium of life, and
yeah.
yeah, while we have that love and gratitude and that balance within, our bodies react accordingly, don't they?
That's it.
We don't get
Absolutely.
that dis-ease
Mm,
that we all
yep.
get from time to time when we're out of balance, or we're
That's right. Yeah.
we haven't released any moments that might be causing us a bit of trauma or challenges.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And when you think of it, I mean, in that way too, like from a physical level, like if you look at say the chakric system or even the endocrine system and things like that, but like if you think of Scorpio and even then consider it as an axis to Taurus, the scorpionic energy is associated with the sacrum or the root chakra, so to speak, and then that's the plutonic field or the creative energy field, which is where all the repro organs are and all that type of thing as well. But like it's fundamentally our sort of root of operation. And then like as you go up the chakras, like the solar plexus, that's where would be traditionally associated with Mars, the other co-ruler of Scorpio as well. But like so, if you think of it on an animal level or a biological level, the first three chakras, Pluto and Mars, is in its most biological form, defensive, territorial, possessive. It's concerned with survival, fight, fight. It's concerned with just possession and material existence. And then if you think of that, sort of being the primary, and if we're completely going into sort of a defensive control orientation to survival, then yes, all these negative emotions are possible in that way. And that's why they say, like if you then go to the higher and transcend the solar plexus and go into the vibration of the heart, which is just above it, and provide synthesis, you have access to liberating yourself to a higher downflow, which then I suppose the throat then becomes a vehicle of creation rather than just purely defensiveness and aggression and I guess control. So I suppose that love is the key in many ways, because it sort of helps us get outside of that pure survival, fight and flight type energy. And from a health point of view, that's the only way back to homeostasis, because when you're in fight and flight and when you're trying to survive somehow, you're just producing adrenaline. Your nervous system is totally orientated towards sympathetic nervous system outflow. You're not regenerative. You're not, kind of restorative in your functions, and you become sort of, for want of a better word, either allergic or inflammatory, in response to the immune system detecting that there's an external threat. So, like, if we can get back into that rest and digest mentality through, even say on an emotional level, through coming back in through, focusing on love and release and sort of creative self-expression through a lens of empowerment, then it's giving us the opportunity to flick those switches and come back into parasympathetic, or at least come back into more of a balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic, so that our body can restore and it can sort of recollect itself and come out of inflammation, as a response. And I know a lot of adaptogens like echinacea and Siberian ginseng and all those, even cannabis to a degree, like these are all what they call adaptogenic herbs. And the idea of them is to sort of, in a way, help the body come to terms with not being so driven towards protection and defense, and coming back into more of an assimilative, absorptive role. And once we are in parasympathetic, they've shown that our brain, actually, our memory works better, because that's the area of our brain and our body that is wired into that system. Like, we don't need creativity, we don't need good feelings, we don't need memory, we don't need organizational planning when we're trying to survive a bear attack. So like, we all we need is logic, quick self-orientated decision making, and those types of things, because we need to get out of this crisis. And so, like, if the world is living in that state of mind of the bear attacking it, we lose compassion, we lose human togetherness, we lose those types of traits which are very much part of the part of our body that is active when we're safe and eating a beautiful meal at the fire in the cave. And that's where we tell our stories. That's where we tell our tales and share our secrets with one another, and show our affections to one another, because that's where humanity lives. That's where humanity is. Whereas fight and flight is only momentary, and it's purely to serve a purpose of individual survival. And I don't know, not to drag it too far, but in many ways you can see this reflected in the very self-orientated collective responses of the material world versus, say, what would be espoused or discussed in more spiritual understandings. But really, I think on a physical level, it talks about too sympathetic or not parasympathetic enough. And so, yeah, it's about just finding compassion, finding love and gratitude, like you say, eliminating all that sense of danger and disempowerment, which leads to sadness and anger and frustration, because there's something outside of us that we think is more powerful. And so we go into defensiveness mode, which takes us away from love, takes us away from compassion, that type of thing. Yes. So it's a fundamentally physical thing, it's a physiological basis, but a lot of it starts in just our orientation, doesn't it? Like, it's the way we
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me, from what you've said before, with coming into the Scorpio season, that this is the perfect time. In the southern hemisphere, we're in spring, so it's we hear of a spring cleaning, and that can be around the house and the yard and all that, but it can be ourselves as well, isn't it? And to have that regenerative mindset and be able to move forward. And we need to cleanse first, don't we? We need to make sure
That's
that
it.
we've released all that's no longer serving us and just moving forward with a
That's
cleaner
it.
body, with a cleaner environment, and a cleaner mindset and a heart, and more,
Yeah,
and not in that
that's
fight
it.
or flight mode, and rather than being in the, to release and allow that creativity and
Absolutely, Bill.
that compassion
Yeah,
and kindness, moving forward.
that's
So
it. Yeah.
perfect
Shed
time.
the load. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good, isn't it? Like it's that's the idea. Really Scorpio gets a bad press, but really Scorpio is absolutely regenerative, and it is about releasing. Like, yeah, that's the thing. Release, open up the energy. Like universal energy is the same amount. It just either gets trapped in form or it isn't in form. So if you look at your life and you look at your feelings and you look at all the forms that you've got in your world, how much of that is old packed up stationary energy that's no good for anything
Yeah.
that we could liquefy or release into a new flowing form for the purposes of some creative endeavor. And I mean, it can just be if the attic's full of stuff, move it on, and you'll be surprised what that energy space will create. The universal law will you move energy that way, it's going to come in another way. So, like in many ways, yeah, release and create, and that's Beltane. They used to dance around the maypole and all that type of thing, and it is that recognition of the vigor of youth in that it's new energy and it's new creative potential, and just how the weaving of the blue and the red tapes go together. It's just life unfolds and it refolds together again. So it is that, yeah, it's time to freshen up, lighten the load,
That's
get
it.
out there. Yeah, absolutely, Billy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, the good thing is if you look at the chart too, like from a chart point of view, we've got this Mars-Pluto opposition, which on face value is, yeah, pretty tense. And I'll say at this point, don't get drawn into conflict. If you're in any kind of disempowered disposition, there's going to be every opportunity over the next month to be brought into a position of either protection or triggering something that's repressed or something that's sort of within you that you may or may not realize is going on. So watch out for conflict. Don't be drawn into conflict, but at the same time, be constructive with the use of your emotional energy. Look at old forms that are in your life, break them down, release the energy, and do something new with it. That's one big thing. But that opposition is tied up in this pretty amazing structure in astrology. They call it a kite formation, and it's tied in there with Neptune and Mercury in Scorpio. Mercury's in Scorpio and Neptune's in Pisces, all linking into this lovely kite formation with Mars and Pluto. So there's this really sort of deep intuitive connection going on here. There's this really deep sort of access to some very fresh sort of divine energy, that's there to be brought in to replace or to actually dig deep into ourselves to look at how we're going to clear out the spaces or what we're going to let go of. So it's a really good time to listen to your internal voice, like just tune in, because the energy is there for it. It's not just face value destructive. It's not here to stir us up. It's not here to upset us. It's here to trigger a new consciousness or trigger a new awareness or a new sort of recognition of, I guess, who we are and what we're about. And I mean, on one hand too, Jupiter, just to go in a little bit further, but Jupiter's in Gemini, at the new moon, and it's opposing Venus. So like again, there's this interesting energy there where Jupiter at 20 degrees of Gemini. 20 degrees of Gemini is about a whole bunch of collective emotion bursting forth in a revolutionary kind of outpouring. And I mean, add that to Mars against Pluto, and you just say, well, we've got the American election coming up in a short period of time. It's an enormous pressure cooker for this enormous release of energy, not just through the American election, but I feel that just symbolizes, the global repression that's going on in light of, I guess, personal safety versus collective, structural use of power, if you know what I mean. So there's this sort of generalized sense of repression, at work at the moment in history. So that's set to be released and be brought out into the open. And so with that going on, we will probably be aware of the opposition, which is Venus in Sag. There's this sense that, what's the fine line between being protective and what's the fine line between being overprotective? And so, again, that harks back to that sense of sympathetic nervous system. Are we too full on? Are we too defensive? Are we too kind of overreactive? Or do we need to be protective of what's right and true? And so, in many ways, if you had to sort of bring it down into an ideology, it's this return, I think, to some sort of conservative midpoint, like some sort of conservative sort of coalescence around not being too extreme and not being too open. So, in many ways, again, it sort of points to a return to value, a return to what is enduring, a return to what is sort of has traditional stability and a quality about its heritage. And that's not just collectively, but that's within us too. Like if we find that we're overpowered or overdone by the world, just come back to what works for you. Remind yourself of why you're doing it. Like don't worry about what you're coming up against. Move away from it and move towards why you're doing it in the first place. So that, in many ways, that's the sort of vibe there. But there's enormous abundance, enormous guidance, and sort of, in the same way, there's a realization in this aspect of how we can participate better from our perspective. So again, it's very individualizing. And ultimately, just to reharp, it's because Pluto's moving into Aquarius too. The focus is shifting away from, I guess, the individual more towards the group, but also at the same time, so how can I be an individual? How is my individuality of service to the group? But we can't answer that question until we know who we are. And that's the Leo part of that opposition, is that it's the heart, it's the center, it's who we are, it's love, it's finding that place of connection within ourselves so that we can be a better servant of the social collective zeitgeist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and by tapping into our inner selves, we can then present a more authentic and genuine heart space perspective. Yeah, and that's our offering to the collective, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely, Billy. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Which I hope will emerge. I do hope that's going to start emerging, over the next few years. Is this sort of greater realization of self, like a sort of, and even to the point where self-realization will possibly become some form of driver of a new ideal. Like it'll be the new idea as Neptune and Saturn kind of move into their conjunction in Aries next year. Like we're moving away from the identification with the hierarchy and the structure and the global order into a realization of self.
Yeah.
And what it is to be a person, and what implications that has, because a truly realized self has great amounts to offer the collective social evolution of humanity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's that type of vibe. So hopefully it's the flip side of the technocratic tyranny, and we start to see a humanitarian evolution.
Absolutely.
Going
and being in that heart space, I love what you said before, Martin, about being are we being protective or overprotective as well, and also what is the truth in that protection? So what are we protecting, and is that actually the truth? That might be our truth, or was our truth from our perspective, last week, last month, last year.
That's
but
it.
Is that still the truth? Is that, and how do we know it's the truth? And using our going into our heart, I think we can. Sometimes our mind can play tricks on us, particularly with all the influences around in news and etc. To use that go into it. Well, exactly what follow on what you're saying there. Be in your heart space, be in gratitude. I feel like for me personally, that allows me to use my discernment, my intuition a lot more effectively, and not to say what I know is the truth still, but don't be so staunch in that either. I think we can all think back of multiple examples where we're steadfast, that's it, like, and you're fighting for something, and then you go, oh, hang on, that wasn't the case, because some other components come in and revealed
That's
that
it.
what you were fighting for wasn't actually the whole truth. And
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And
so
in many ways too, we might in a way be using truth as part of the deception, the delusion. Like truth might be an ideal in itself. Like where just before truth or prior to truth, if you look at it from a practical context, we must first get to knowledge, and knowledge comes from experience, and knowledge comes from practical doing. So, like, is it the truth? And what is the truth? Maybe the truth is what we end up achieving. Like, I mean, that's the truth. If we can pull it off, if we can devote, if it works, if it actually happens. But if we sacrifice ourselves at the altar of the truth, we might interrupt our process to reaching some true knowledge. And
that's
like, so in many ways, that's where the Sagittarian vibration kind of comes in. And, it's associated with truth, but it's also associated with higher knowledge and higher awareness. But at the same time, it's associated with judgment and dogmatism and those types of things. So, in our quest for the truth, are we being judgmental? Is
oh,
that blocking us from true knowledge? Is that blocking us from higher awareness? And so, yeah, it's sort of in a way brings us back to the need to be practically, orientated to our life. Like, don't just think that that's how it should be. Live your life. Like, get on with it. Live
that's
your truth.
yeah.
Live your truth, and that hopefully will reveal some knowledge.
That's
Yeah,
right, and
possibly.
and
Yeah,
and very important. I love that. It's sort of segued into me what I was just thinking before, as well as you brought up judgment, like to live in your truth, live your life, live your practicality, but then allow others to do the same. If it
absolutely.
might be
Yeah,
completely different to what you're doing, but
yeah,
what's to say you're right and they're wrong? It doesn't have to be that way. So
exactly. Yeah,
and that's
and I
where that
think
peace and harmony and that cohesion comes in. That we all,
that's it.
as you say before, the Scorpios have given us a chance to bring in that collective energy. That's going
Mm,
to we all can't be the same. We all can't think the same. We don't want to echo each other's thoughts because then there's no
yeah,
that stifles the creativity. How often do we
that's
look
it.
at and they call it best practice? You look at someone and go, oh, I like what they're doing, and then you move
Yep,
forward towards that, and then rather than go, oh,
that's
they're
it.
doing it different to me, that can't
Yeah,
be right, and and
that's it.
and blocking that out and missing that
Exactly.
opportunity to grow and expand. Yeah,
Exactly. How can we participate? How can we participate in it? Like, and it's either, and if we don't resonate with it, don't participate in it. It's not our gig.
no,
Get on with find something else that is our gig, and then participate with that. Like, because ultimately, if you look at human endeavor, like whatever it is that resonates or doesn't resonate with us, it doesn't matter because the same will is driving all of it.
that's
And
right.
so
Yeah,
it's the human will is that scorpionic part, which is the urge to create. So it's just finding out what it is that you align with to participate in the creation of. Because at the end of the day, it's all gonna contribute beneficially to everyone on some level anyway.
that's
Like
true.
it's
Very
yeah,
true.
it's interesting. It's
Excellent.
interesting. But yeah, it's fascinating,
So
fascinating topics.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to mention? Coming, like,
Um,
obviously, 1st of November in the southern hemisphere is when the new moon's coming up. What about November? Is it
Well,
any?
November
Is it?
itself. So yeah,
Yeah.
again, so the main feature of November is this Mars-Pluto opposition. So, and it's very interesting in that normally Mars opposes Pluto, every couple of years or so, but this time around it's actually, it's Pluto's sort of in its transition into Aquarius, and Mars is kind of going to do this retrograde process as well in December. So it's going to pretty much by orb be opposite Pluto as it retrogrades back towards the end of, or towards, into December. So Mars is going to be opposite Pluto for about till about February, essentially. So it's quite an intense energy, and I would say, sort of get used to it in a way, like get used to how to rationalize your feelings and the way you express your feelings into or in relation to our own sort of structural integrity, our own sort of boundaries, our own kind of, I guess, our own personal empowerment. So it's really about realizing that frustration in many ways could be linked back to our inability to apply ourselves to the structures or to the efforts that are required to create what is required for that energy to take form. So in many ways, there's a real inner dynamic that we're all being confronted with of let's not so much blame the external. Let's start taking internal responsibility to be the very initiator of the way our energy flows. And if you think of it from an elemental point of view, water is what precedes earth, right? So Cancerian energy is emotional energy. So if we get emotive about something, or if we need something, or if we have some sort of driver that makes us, need security, that's Cancerian. So it's that energy which ultimately makes us, in the scheme of realization, makes us go and get something of substance, right? Or bring something into form. So in many ways, it's our need for security, or our emotional requirements, that are the driving energy behind the acquisition or the attainment of material manifestational form. So really, there's this enormous amount of realizational energy available as potential to be directed into achieving actual material outcomes over the next few months. And so why not use them for that? So I guess to drill it down into a simpler context, re reflect on what it is we need. What do we need? What brings us security? What brings us, what actually are we doing it for? When we go out into the world, in Capricorn, we're obviously going out to get money, or do a job, or have a career, or whatever. But that then feeds back into the opposite polarity, which is Cancerian, for home, for security, for nourishment, for family, for whatever. So there's this interplay that goes on. We go out and we achieve something for the purposes of, building a better foundation for ourselves. Sometimes I think the world has at some stage forgotten that the Cancerian side of it, why we're doing it, is just as important as what we're doing. And so it's important to work out why we're doing it, what it is we're striving for, what are we going for, and who ultimately is, in charge of that, comes down to where we sit in relation to our position of empowerment. So in many ways, yeah, it's just getting back to that fundamental roots. And in one way, I can see this reflected in the American situation now, where you can actually feel the return to the traditional grassroots Americanism of the Cancerian style of things, because America is actually a Cancerian. Like if you look at 4th of July, that's Cancer. So like America itself is Cancerian. So America's built on this principle of home and family and nation and all these types of things. So this very much, and what the fight is now is against the supposed diabolical, controlling, authoritative, suppressive forces that are now threatening the American way of life, or at least that's one of the underpinning themes. Anyway, so that really speaks about that Mars-Pluto opposition that in their countries play out, but in the world it's going to be going on every level, in every way, for all of us. And so, as an individual, I'd just look at what nourishes you. Why are you doing it? What it's about, and in that realization, realize that there's a lot of energy there from that realization, and then just direct that into efforts and structures and goals to support that. So it's about, in a way, self-alignment, align with what you need and what you're about.
Beautiful.
Basically.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love
Cut
it.
long story short. Yeah.
No, that's great,
Yeah.
fantastic, and don't forget.
It'll be an interesting month.
Don't forget, take a breath,
Yeah.
before you, because in that volatility, it's very easy to react and,
It is.
get in the fight, or spiral into that hurricane or tornado.
That's it. If in doubt, walk away, count to 10. Yeah, come back to it and go, well, how much of this is out of my power? And if it's out of your power, let it go.
That's
how
right.
much of this is in my power? And then just work out what you can do.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. I love the analogy of sitting, near a pond, and you're trying to get that clarity, and you've got that real clear water, and you can see it, but then it starts getting a little bit jumbled up, and a fish goes past, or an eel, and you want to dive. If you dive in there, that muddies the water, because your feet hit the ground of the creek or the pond, and before long it's you're in it, and you've got less clarity, because it's you've got all the murky water there, where if you just stay back and sit on the bank and just, all right, have a look, and
That's it. No, I like that analogy. I love it, Billy. That's a good analogy. Yeah, like you can do far better on the bank. you can
That's it.
see far more from the bank for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
totally.
we might finish up there. I'd love to, as always, plug your beautiful services. So yeah,
Thanks, Bill.
you're better off explaining it. But yeah,
Oh, well, so yeah, we're Arcanum Vita. You can find us at arcanumvita.com.au. And yeah, we offer astrological services, naturopathic services as well, herbal medicine, that type of thing, and also a range of natural products that we make ourselves and all from scratch.
they're
And yeah, we
wonderful
just
products.
try
Yeah.
and produce really nice things for the world. So yeah, but yeah, tune in. We do astrological chart sessions. We do personal development work with people, ongoing basis with chart work, and yeah, just be in touch. We're on. Also, check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Arcanum Vita. So yeah, but thanks, Billy. Really, really appreciate
Oh, you're very
being
welcome.
the opportunity
I'll put the link
to put
on
that out there.
underneath here. So yeah, no,
Yeah, cool.
it's not just promoting you and plugging you, but it's giving people the know how to contact you because of
Yeah,
the
thank
wonderful
you.
things that you can do for people, and your products are speaking from first hand experience are
Excellent.
amazing.
No, thanks,
So
Billy. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you.
yeah,
Cool. Well,
exciting times as
yeah.
always.
Oh yeah, it should be November should be quite an interesting month. I think it's the one we've been waiting for, like or at least the one which starts off what we've been waiting for. So it's quite pivotal times from an astrological point of view. It's very charged, very action packed. Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely. So
Leading
just
into
stay cool.
what
Yeah.
lies ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
absolutely.
Should be interesting. Cool.
All right. Well,
Awesome. Thanks, Billy.
thank you so much as always, Martin. You've been I love your information and that you're coming from the heart space as well, and really enjoy our chats all the time. So I hope everyone out
Likewise.
there
Thanks.
gets a lot out of it as much as I do. So yeah, thank you again.
Cool. Excellent. Thanks very much.
All right.
See you
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks for watching.